Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing? I'm doing alright. My Team Liquid name is Wand. I'm going to be commenting, or shoutcasting, whatever you want to say, on this public game between Sirith of the HB clan and Crazy Stupid Lamb. I'm not doing this live as I have done in the past. I'm doing this after the fact, and the reason for that I will make clear later on in the game. Anyway, this is, map is Blue Storm, Zerg versus Terran. Obviously, both players doing what they do best. Both players are also, they're alright. They know a thing or two. You can tell that as you're going to see later in the game here. Also, I have some music playing in the background. I'm trying to take some advice given to me by the Team Liquid forum members. Try and get better at this stuff, you know. Thought I'd give you some music while I pause. One thing worth commenting on here, this Terran is sending his 7th SCV out to look for the Zerg player. Now, at the time, it's kind of confusing to think why would a Terran player send his 7th SCV? Normally, Terran players use their 8th SCV, as this Terran player just did now, to build their supply depot and not scout this early into the game. Another thing worth commenting on is the Zerg player doing that little drone trick, or the supply trick. Terran player did not see it. If he did, he might have called GG and left, because most people that I know, personally, kind of frown upon that tactic. Now, Terran player using that 7th SCV to check if the Zerg player was going to try and 4-pool him, or do any kind of Zergling rush. That way he would have known ahead of time, and would have been prepared accordingly. Terran player going for 8 supply, 11 barracks. Typical strategy. Zerg player going out, apparently to try and expand, but then deciding to come back. Terran player doing a very good job with his SCV to keep it in the hatchery build zone for the expansion. He knows that the Zerg player wants to expand fast, but the Zerg player says, you know what, I can't waste time this early in the game, so I'm just going to build my hatchery, and then I'm going to build another hatchery later on in the place where I want it to be. Terran player very wisely deciding to back out and go back to his base, mine minerals. He's done what he can. He delayed the Zerg player for a few seconds. Maybe not that big of a deal in the long run, but right now it makes a significant enough difference. We'll see how it plays out. Spawning pool coming up between the hatchery and the Vespine geyser. Reason for that is because the drones kind of slide over the spawning pool when going for gas. So we know that the Zerg player, aside from that being a pretty standard thing, Terran player building his academy. So we're going to see Marines and Medics, also a very standard thing. Nothing too significant or interesting up to this point, but hopefully it'll get more interesting as we go along here. As I was saying, drones kind of slide across the extractor, and they slide across the spawning pool going to the extractor, and you give a Vespine gas fast. Most Zerg players do that just for habit. Some people don't even know why. I was watching a game a while ago, asked him, why does he do that? And he was like, well, I don't know, I just see people do it. It's not very smart to not know why you do certain things. But whatever, it works. So we know he's going to want to tech up later on in the game. Zerg player going for a 3 hatch, like I said earlier. He's building his hatchery where the Terran SCV was a minute ago. First 2 Zerglings come out, and they're going to be used to move out, probably sit outside the Terran player's base. Terran player has an idle SCV. There we go. Wait. Yeah, there we go. He fixed it. Okay. Not that big of a deal. Only for a few seconds. Terran player, also worth noting here, his base is very compact, which is a pretty smart idea defensively because of the Marines' range, especially after he upgrades, if he upgrades, rather, the Marine U-238 shells, I believe they're called, so that he can increase his Marines' range. It'll be very useful for defending, because if the Zerglings come in and try to, harass the building, the Marines won't have to travel very far to get within range to attack the Zerg player. Excuse me, I'm bumping the microphone here. Using my hands to talk when I don't need to. Zerg player gathering his forces outside of the Terran player's base. Personally, if I was a Terran player, I would not put my army right here. I would put it at the choke point, because that's the only entrance to his base. So a little bit of a positioning error by the Zerg player. Excuse me, the Terran player. But we'll see how it works out. Supply depot coming up. Terran player is close to, he just hit his supply limit, so he's going to need that. But it's timed pretty well because supply depot finished like a second after he hit his limit. Zerg player also going to need another overlord pretty soon. Zerglings running around, coming in the back door. trying to take out the supply depot. They do not want this other one coming up. There goes the SCV, so the supply depot is going to be stalled, but the Terran player does have an extra SCV here to keep track of it. Terran player has eliminated the Zergling rush. Wasn't a very big rush. Zerg player probably just did that to get a feel for the Terran player's build, because up to this point he has not seen the Terran player's base. Now that he has, he can kind of draw what he's going to do, see if he wants to change his opening. Stim pack's obviously been researched. Terran player looks like he's going to be countering and moving out. Zerg player sees that Marine there. Did not see the rest of them, I don't believe. His range is not that far. And it looks like the Terran player is regrouping, getting his troops all together, so that when he moves through the hole and gets into the Zerg player's expansion, he'll be able to attack it. However, it looks like it's going to be repelled here. The Zerg player has 4 sunken colonies defending the base, plus some Zerglings to keep the Marines and whatnot occupied. Terran player deciding to back out of that strategy, retreats, which is a smart thing to do for him. Terran player now has a comsat. One interesting strategy that Terran player might use here is, there's the factory, he probably will use this. He's going to build some tanks and then siege them outside of the Zerg player's expansion. That's a pretty common tactic for Terran against any race on this map because of that small hole right there. As long as you can use your comsat or any kind of air unit to get vision around that cliff edge right there, you can effectively lay siege to your opponent's expansion and kind of push your way through. Take out his mineral line first, obviously. That's always the important target. Terran player putting in missile turrets. He's expecting fast mutilisks, which is a very wise decision because it looks like the Zerg player is actually going to go for that. Looking at the minimap here, Zerg player is moving out his forces, as we can see right now, around the map. He's not taking the normal route because he wants to come around and attack the Terran player from behind. He knows that the Terran player has an army or a force somewhere in the center of the map, but he doesn't have overlords or he doesn't have a comsat for himself because he's the Zerg and he wants to go around it. And he did a pretty good job of that. Terran player coincidentally dividing his forces in half and sending half of them back to his base for defense just in case, and sending the other half to the secondary expansion to see if the Zerg player decided to expand again. Unfortunately, he hasn't, so now he's going to retreat those troops. Zerg player has ran straight through the Terran player's defenses and has made it into his base, but he is now surrounded and cannot get out because the Terran player's army right here, as we see now, is taking this out.